Hi, my name is Charlotte Jones, and I'm 51 years old, and I have been a member at CGS for 7 years. And I came here because my family and I moved out to the Spring area a while back, and we were living too far from our home parish. So we decided to check out CGS and came, and we really liked it. It took a while though, because for the first few years that we lived out here, we were going back to our home parish, which was St. Monica's in Acres Homes. And that's my home parish. That's where I really grew in my Catholic faith. And my children went to school with a lot of the kids that attended CGS. So my son was invited to come by another young adult to come to, I think it was youth night or something. So anyway, he comes, and at the same time, I decided that I liked it. My husband said he was okay with it, he liked it. So then we started attending. And it made it a lot easier for my children to adjust because they knew other kids here. And then I began to wonder, what do I need to do to fit in, or just to kind of be active, because I grew up in a very Protestant tradition, and I'll get to that in a moment. But so I became a catechist, and first I prayed about it. I prayed and I asked God to help me grow my faith. And then the youth minister came to me literally about 3 weeks later and said, "We need catechists. Would you be interested?" And that's when I realized that God was speaking to me saying, "You need to do this." So I decided to become a catechist, and it's been a wonderful journey. To get back to my Protestant upbringing, I was raised in a very Protestant tradition that I'm still very proud of. I had two grandfathers who helped build their respective churches. Their names are in the cornerstones of those churches. They were deacons. I had, my father was a deacon, and I had an uncle who was a pastor of a Baptist church that is still flourishing, even though he has passed on. So everything we did was centered around church. If we traveled, we prayed before we went to church. Any kind of family milestone, we prayed about it. We praised God about it. So that was the tradition I grew up in. My father taught Sunday school. Both of my grandfathers taught Sunday school. I sang in the choir. I was over the choir. I mean, we were deeply entrenched in that. I was teased as a child for being the church kid. You know, I got teased unmercifully for that. But I remembered that Jesus said, "You'll be persecuted in my name." So I bore it. And how I came to becoming a Catholic was that my coworker had invited me to go to Mass with her as I was going through a very difficult divorce. We both worked downtown, and so she invited me to come to Mass with her at Holy Cross Chapel. So I attended, and I never stopped. And it was there that I felt that God really heard me, that God really saw me, that God really was able to reach me. And so from there, it grew from there. When I met my husband, he and I dated by going to church, and he was a member at St. Monica's, and I was looking for another parish to go to that I could really identify with, and St. Monica's is an African-American parish. And so there were people who looked like me, who understood me, who had the same culture as I did. So we started dating and going there, and then we got married there, and our kids were baptized there, and First Holy Communion, and some of them were confirmed there. And you're probably wondering, well, why didn't you just continue to go to your traditional church? Well, because sometimes I believe that God touches people in different ways. And while I still carry my Protestant upbringing with me, it is the cornerstone of who I am as Charlotte. I'll never give that up. It is also the place that brought me to my Catholic faith. And my family has been very supportive of it. They've been here. We've never had this tradition of the us and them mentality. I was always taught we were all Christians. So it's been a good journey. One of the things that I had to adjust to in coming to CGS was a different way of praise and worship. It was less passionate, if you will, than what I was used to. at St. Monica's, because it is an African American church, we tended to have a more gospel-centric praise and worship service. And being raised Protestant in a Black Protestant church, that's what I was used to. That's what I'm still used to. And my children were used to that. My husband, on the other hand, he was born and raised a Catholic, and he went to an African American Catholic church in New York City, and they had the same tradition. But he went to Catholic school, and so he was a little more, he adjusted better than I did. I learned to adjust to it, but I still go back to listening to my gospel, because we have to say, woo, praise the Lord, that kind of thing. That's what we have to do. Hey, that's how I roll, okay? We got to shout it to the rooftops. So once we arrived here at CGS and my kids were already acclimating and I became a catechist, I really embraced the journey. It was frightening at first because I did not really know anybody, but I had people who befriended me, and they helped the journey to become easier. And then as being a catechist with helping these young people, it was an honor. It was truly an honor because I got to bond with them. I became, like all the other catechists, that extension of the home to help raise their children in the Christian life. And I learned from them as well. It wasn't just about me getting up and trying to teach them church doctrine. It was more so because I needed it. And they don't realize that they gave that to me, but they did. So being a catechist has been extremely fulfilling for me, and so that it also led me to my second career. When my husband and I moved out here, I quit my job and I stayed home for about 10 years to just be a stay-at-home mom and just kind of help my kids to really navigate through the new school, the new neighborhood, the new life, and all of that. And when they got old enough, I decided to go back to work. Well, being a catechist helped me to pursue a career in education. I had already had a bachelor's degree, so I wanted to do something else because I was tired of corporate America. So I did that, and I started off in education, and now I teach 6th grade. So it's been really wonderful. And the things that I've learned here at CGS as a catechist, I've taken it into my classroom. And things that I've learned in my classroom, I've used at CGS. So it's really helped me a lot. And to be there with these young people, how they are passionate about Christ, how some of them have questions about their Christian journey, how even some of them have doubts. I have had the honor of helping them through that. Of course, with our guide, our pastor, Father James is our guide, and our youth ministers as our guide to help us through this. It has been an honor and has been a pleasure to work and do this for the past 6 years, I think. 6 years I've been doing it. And every time I say I'm tired, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna give it a break, and then the Lord says, no, I need you to stay. So for now, I'm here, and every retreat that I've been on has been wonderful to get to see these young people and see how they grow in the Lord, and then they go on with their lives. And some of them have come back to become catechists, so I'm honored to do that. One of the things that I do in my classes as a catechist, which helps me, is I have them to repeat is Ephesians 4:32, which is what I grew up with, which is what the pastor that I had growing up in my Protestant church, he always said this right before benediction, which is be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake has forgiven you. And so at the end of my class every Sunday night with my kids, I just say my kids because they're my kids. I always have them to repeat that, because if they say that, then hopefully they'll carry it in their heart and they'll take it with them to school. And when they see their fellow church member at school, they'll say hello and openly fellowship with them and have something to share when they come back. And I truly believe that. Truly believe that. Sometimes in life, your faith gets really tested, and especially during these times with the pandemic and the protesting and all this other stuff that's going on, it has been very difficult to deal with some of the external things that have happened. And so here we are relying on our faith again, and I'm happy to have had that opportunity to do that. That's not to say that I haven't been challenged in my faith, because I have. It is a journey. One of my challenges was, it wasn't why was all this happening, it was how to deal with the emotions that I had. And how do I express that to God, even though I know God knows my heart, even though He knows what I'm about to say, how to express that. And if I get truly upset about something, it's hard for me to express that in prayer. I can pray really good when the good times are good, but when the bad times are tough, all I can do is just be silent and just hopefully God can hear my heart. As part of my journey, as part of any journey, and I use King David as an example, sometimes you have that dry spell that Father James says that we have, and then you come back to yourself, and then you realize, I need to rely on my faith to get me through these tough times. And so that's what I've been doing, is relying on my faith, and it's been truly wonderful and a blessing to do that. I also think that your church is your church family. And although I have had some things that have prevented me from being closer, I do have my close circle that have really become my church family, I think. I still have my home parish as my heart, my center, because that's where I really came into my own. But being here at CGS, I do have my close-knit friends that I'm very grateful to have. I have one memory that stood out to me so much. It was one Sunday, we were here at Mass, and Father James was teaching his homily, and there were a lot of people who were in the back rows standing, and there was a lot of spaces in between people in the pews. And in the middle of speaking, he just stopped and he says, "Why do we have all these people standing? If you're standing, I want you to go ahead and find some place to sit." People started kind of hesitantly going down the aisles, trying to find some place to sit. And he comes from behind the podium and comes down into where the parishioners are. And he says, "You scoot over, you scoot over." He says, "We are a church. We are not going to have our church members standing. We're going to have people to sit down. Stop thinking of yourself. Stop getting so attached to this pew. Scoot over and let somebody sit down." And there were people who did not want to scoot over. And I remember my children and I were just watching that in awe, because there have been times when people didn't want to scoot over, maybe because they were attached to their seat and didn't want to let us sit down, or they didn't want a fellowship. By him saying it, it just brought back a childhood memory of mine where my pastor growing up, Pastor Tillman, may he rest in peace, he would always say, "You know what, we're not going to have you scoot over, let someone sit down. We are a church family. This is what families do. We look out for each other." And it just reminded me so much of what I had learned as a child. And that's part of me. That is a part of me. If someone comes to your church, you are supposed to fellowship with them. Don't wait for them to fellowship with you. This is your church, your home. You welcome them. You're the host. You show them, you help them to acclimate to other people. And I grew up seeing that, and that stayed with me. So whenever we have someone that's new to our church that I know of, then I go out of my way to be friendly, because that's what I was taught. So Father James gave that to me in my adult life, but he also, more importantly, gave it to my children. If a person wants to become active at CGS and you're not really sure how to do that, I would say pray first. Pray about it first. That's what my dad always taught me. Pray first. Wait and listen for the Lord to tell you what you should do, and then go from there. And if you know that, a lot of times you need to do something here, you just don't know what. If you pray about it and you just be patient and let the Lord guide you, then you can, when you come to Mass, then you can read up and talk to people who are in different ministries and see what really speaks to your heart. For me, it was being with the youth. I will always be with the youth, because that's where my heart lies. I'm a person who's young at heart. Maybe you are a person who wants to become a Eucharistic minister. If the Lord calls you to that, then that's where you go. If you're not sure if the Lord is speaking to you, then maybe you should just talk to someone. try out that ministry, and then maybe you like it but you're not in love with it, or then you just move on to something else. There are different things that you can do here. There are different areas where people are needed. So if you really want to get involved, just let the Lord speak to your heart. Ask questions, but first pray. I said, I didn't say the whole time. I said, again. Hope you bleep that out.